Hello, Sharon. How are you?
I'm good. I just woke up about an hour ago. So,
Thank you so much for taking the time.
yeah, no problem.
If you could tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you do, where you're from.
My name is Sharon, and I am from New York. I'm from a town called Yonkers. It's just right outside of Manhattan. Um, I was a special education teacher for 7 years, and I left that, and I just completed my master's degree, my second master's degree in speech language pathology. So.
At what age did you realize you stuttered, and how did the stuttering impact your life?
So I think it was my parents that told me that I stuttered, and they just kind of briefly explained it because they're from Ireland, so they call it a stammer. So they were calling it a stammer and just said, oh, like there were people in the family who also stutter. So it was just like, oh yeah, it's okay, these things happen. And they were very supportive. But I think once I got a little bit older and noticed that I talked different than other kids, I think that's when it started to sink in. There was a memory that comes to mind when I was in third grade. My third grade teacher was doing a math bee with us, and she was doing the multiplication tables. And I love the multiplication tables, I can run them off like that. And she comes to me and she was, Sharon, what's 3 times 6? I know 3 times 6 is 18. 18 was my number in any sport that I played. 18 is a part of my birth date. So like I know the number 18, but I have difficulty with vowel sounds. And my parents always encouraged me and said, if you have difficulty, you should talk to the teacher and ask, could you write it on the board? So I was like, oh, that's a great strategy. So I had said to the teacher, like, I know it, can I write the answer? And she was, no, like, you have to tell me 5 seconds. And I was like, okay. So I remember going 18 and hitting my head to get it out. The whole class started laughing. And from then on, I was the butt of everyone's joke. I was bullied mercilessly growing up. I was called Stuttering Sharon. People were imitating my speech. I had one authority figure in my school who told me the reason why that I stuttered is because of something bad that my parents did when they were younger growing up.
Wow, that is horrible.
Yeah.
Wow. And the teacher didn't do anything to stop
I
like students to make comments, or how did the teacher react?
To be honest, I don't remember because I think I was just so embarrassed that I just kind of like curled into myself. But I do know when I was getting older that if there was difficulties, my father would come in and speak with the principal, and then with the principal and the teacher, and then they would kind of come to an agreement as to help me because I went to Catholic school, so there aren't a lot of services in the schools for children with speech and language disorders in Catholic schools. So we had to come up with different ways and different strategies to kind of help me with my speech when I was growing up.
But that's crazy because it really goes on to show how people have no idea what is stuttering. And it's just so sad, and really it's actually worrying to see the how the schools, the academic places, they're not really ready to support people with like speech impediments. And that's very serious because a student that is really brilliant and full of talents can end up not wanting to go to the classroom because he or she doesn't want to feel like embarrassed or something like that. And in schools, it's very common that you have to also, let's say, read out loud. Like every person has to read one part. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
why do they do that? And
Yeah.
it's terrible.
I would always count like Okay, so there's 5 ahead of me. I'm going to be reading this 6th line. Let's see if there's any like difficult sounds in there that are going to give me problems.
Yeah.
But I do like that you brought up the fact about how it's not really treated in schools. And I taught in New York City, and I worked very well with a lot of the speech pathologists that were in the school, and we would collaborate, and she would push in on my lessons, or like I would let her run a lesson one week. And I always asked, like, this particular child has a stutter. And I was always told, oh, stuttering isn't treated in the schools because it doesn't affect children academically. And I was like, that is so not true. It really does, because like you said, even if this child is brilliant and has all these talents, you're not going to want to perform in the classroom if people are going to make fun of you. So it really does affect children academically. And from what I've seen going through a master's program in speech pathology, though fluency is emphasized, like the fluency disorders class is emphasized, and we all take it, not a lot of people want to treat it. You have difficulty finding speech pathologists that treat fluency because they don't feel comfortable with it, because it's it's a complex disorder, right? So there's the emotional and the like physical effects of like maybe eye twitching or hitting your head or something like that. So there's all of these different areas and behaviors to treat that a lot of people don't feel comfortable doing.
I would imagine that it's challenging because when it comes to like stuttering, you cannot promise to cure anyone. You can only treat and try to improve and have a better lifestyle, but you cannot tell the parents or like the person that you will cure them from like stuttering and then they will be fluent. So I think it might be challenging for professionals who might feel uncomfortable with the fact that they can help, but they cannot, let's say, guarantee fluency, you know? So I would
Yeah.
imagine that's one of the reasons why it might be very challenging.
Oh yeah, definitely, because it is challenging, and sometimes like small growth is still growth, but to the client or to their caregiver, it might not be the change they want to see. So I think it's important that everyone's incorporated in the therapy process, the client and the caregivers, if they are young children. So
Do you think your stuttering influenced you somehow to become a speech therapist, to become a speech pathologist, or it's not related to it? Is this something that you have always dreamed of, and you are now pursuing this?
I call it my 27-year journey, because I'm in my mid-30s. And uh, when I was 7, I told my parents I wanted to be a speech pathologist. And my dad was like, the fact that you can say pathologist at the age of 7 means that you're serious, because it's such a big word for a 7-year-old. So that was the goal that I always worked towards. And so I remember in high school, we had to take a career aptitude test just to kind of like see the kind of path that we were going on. And my top 3 were speech pathologist, special education teacher, and social worker. So I have 2 of the 3 done now. But when I got to college, I went to a program where I did speech in undergrad, but it's a very competitive field, and it's also very work intensive, and I didn't get the grades that I needed for graduate school. So I ended up going for special education because I've always volunteered with people with disabilities, and it was just an area that I was interested in. So did that. Sorry. Did that, and then went into teaching, but speech never left my mind. It was always just there. Like I said, one day I'm just going to do it. And the opportunity presented itself in 2016. I went back to school and I completed 8 prerequisites. So I resat 8 classes to get a better grade. And then I applied in 2019 and I got in. So now this is the culmination of that 27-year journey. So
That's amazing. Well done for actually following your dreams. Not
thank you.
everyone does that in life, so that's really good. And you were supposed to finish when?
So I graduate on August 24th.
Do you think that the fact that you actually like stutter, it's an advantage to becoming a speech therapist? Like, do you think if they know that the speech therapist also like stutter, do you think the parents would see this as, oh, this is great because she really knows how to treat stuttering? Or do you think some people would see as, well, I'm not sure if my child should go to a speech therapist. They also like stutter. Like, how do you see this?
So I appreciate that you brought that up, because this is a question that's always been asked to me. And I really think it's an advantage because it helps me relate to the client on a one-to-one basis, like really understand what they're going through emotionally and how I can relate to them. And I'm very forthcoming with being a person who stutters. So I always tell the parents and I tell the clients, I'm like, hey, like, I'm a person who stutters just like you. When I was 12, I was on that side of the therapy table, and now I'm on this side, and we're going to do this together. Like, you're not alone in this. We're going to do it together. And you definitely see this like personality shift, or they start to open up a little more, knowing that, oh, so I'm not the only person that stutters. My therapist also does too. So I think it's important to let my clients know that, hey, I'm just like you. Like, I've been through the process. I know what it's like. And last semester, I actually, when I was doing my externship, I had, I believe, 6 or 7 fluency clients on my caseload. And I treated them, and they were just fantastic. And I love them. And I just love to treat stuttering and just getting into that nitty gritty, those emotions that are there, and just really talking about it. For me personally, I think, now this might be different than how other speech pathologists are, but I think treating the emotions first is helpful, because it kind of gets past those roadblocks or some of those secondary behaviors that we might have. Like, I know for me, I still twitch my left eye on certain sounds. But I had a client that always put his hand in front of his face. So I said, well, why don't we play a game, right? I talk with my hands, and you put your hand in front of your face when you talk. Why don't we try for 30 seconds? I'm going to sit on my hands, and you're going to fold yours here, and we're going to do it for 30 seconds and not use our hands. And that's how I slowly started gaining his trust and started helping him target some of those behaviors that were actually considered to be a lot more pronounced than his stutter. So
That's so interesting. And I think like when people can actually relate to you, they also trust you more. And I think it's easier because I feel like stuttering, we tend to close ourselves a lot, especially with our feelings and the frustration that we feel and things like this. So I think it's really good to have someone that you can actually relate to, and this person knows exactly how like you're feeling and what you are going through.
I agree with that. And I think it's so important that to let our clients know that they're not in this alone. Like, I'm here with you. I've been through this. So, because sometimes parents are just like, they don't know what to do or where to turn, and they kind of look to us for guidance. So it's always, for me, it's always important to let the parents know, like, even when I was in the classroom and I would have IEP meetings, I hate the phone. I absolutely hate the phone. Don't like talking on it. And I would let parents know. I'm like, hey, so I have a speech disorder. Like, it's difficult for me to talk on the phone. And parents are like, okay, that's fine. So I think it's important to really like let the clients know that it's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. You are fine. Like, we're gonna get through this. So
That's amazing. And out of curiosity, How did you deal with all the bullying that you started having and know like experiencing at school? How did you deal with it? What did you do that really helped you to, you know, overcome it?
I'm not gonna lie, there were some pretty tough days where I would come home crying from school. I had perfect attendance. There were some days where I would try to fake sick, and my mom's a nurse. My mom's like, "You're not sick. Like, you're going to school." But honestly, it was my family, my parents, and I have an older brother who were just so supportive and were always in my corner, supporting me. When I tell you my dad was in that office, he was in there at least once a week with the administration. Like, you really need to do something because this kid is being bullied and it's too much. So I went back to speech therapy at 12 because my stutter started to get worse. Like, I hit puberty and my stutter was like a little more pronounced, and kids at that age can be a little cruel sometimes. So I went back, and I like the approach that this speech pathologist took. She really targeted the behaviors or my emotions, like how I felt about it, and then we did therapy strategies. So I think having her and my parents, my brother, was very helpful. But my parents never like discouraged me from anything. I played sports. They had me in different activities and things like that that really kept me talking, because like I said, like I could talk to a wall and be fine. Like, I'm just that sociable. And it still now does kind of affect me a little bit. Like, I know I'm fluent, but there are times when it'll like creep up and I'm like and I have a block, or I'm just like, oh my god, what is this person gonna think? Like, how do I sound? So those feelings are still there. And from when I was 12, like I still have some of those feelings because I'm like, well, is this person gonna laugh at me? Like, are they gonna make a snide comment? So
Do you tell people that you like stutter in advance, or you just let them realize by themselves?
so a majority of the time I'll let people know. Like, right now I have a part-time job and I'm a waitress and a manager at a restaurant, and I don't necessarily tell the guests or the customers that I stutter, but I've told my coworkers, or like I've been on job interviews, or I've been in beauty pageants where I'm very forthcoming, like, hey, like I'm a person who stutters. It doesn't affect me at all from talking. Like, I'm not going to shut up, basically. So you can tell me when to stop, like that kind of thing. So
What has helped you accepting stuttering as part of your life and keeping moving forward?
there's an instance in particular when I was a senior in high school. So I was about 17. And my friend, who's still one of my best friends now, he asked me to read a poem in front of the entire school. And there's probably like 200 kids in the school and the faculty. And I looked at him and I'm like, no, like I'm not doing that. Like, you're crazy. I'm not. So he finally convinced me. And when I stood up there, it's like the lyrics from the Eminem song, like, my knees were weak and my palms were sweaty, and I'm just there like, I'm about to pass out in front of the whole school. And I read it's 1 Corinthians, like, love is patient, love is kind. I read that because it was around Valentine's Day. I have such difficulty with L's, and I was like, love is patient, love is kind, and I read it without stuttering. And I looked up and I just saw like the teachers were just like, yeah, like clapping, and my friends were like, yeah. And it was just that moment for me that made me feel like I can do this. I'm okay. So there's a mantra that I say to myself every morning. I wake up every morning and I look in the mirror and I say, my stutter doesn't define me, I define me. And I think that's a positive mindset to have. Even if I'm having a bad day, I remind myself, listen, some days your stutter is worse than other days, but remember, it doesn't define you. So
That's
that's
incredible.
where yeah, that's what really like pushes me and motivates me to keep going when I do have those days where I'm just like, I want to talk. So
That's powerful. That's really, really powerful. Thank you for
thank
sharing
you.
this. I had kind of tears in my eyes, like, don't cry, don't cry.
Aw.
As a person who stutters and a future speech pathologist, what do you believe is the best approach to treating stuttering, and why? And do you have any practical tips that you could give?
That's a tough question. Because stuttering is so variable and differs from person to person, I think um, for me, I would have to get to know the client and really want to know what they want to target. Like if they have a job interview coming up, or if it's just to read a passage it's like one paragraph at school and not stutter. So I think it's really client centered and and focusing on their wants and needs, and then incorporating strategies or techniques in that way, and trying to figure out which fluency strategy would work best for them. Um, but I do think that if they are somebody who is very shy, that maybe targeting the emotions, like I said earlier, like targeting the emotional component first would be helpful. So
In your experience, what do you think we can do to decrease the pressure of being fluent the whole time in a world that really values fluency so much?
so I've thought about that a lot, and I really think that we as a society could do a better job at putting a positive slant on it. Because if you think about what's out there in the media, right? We have Porky Pig, we have Adam Sandler's The Water Boy. Um, those are really like negative portrayals of stuttering. And now President Joe Biden is a person who stutters. And to see a man in such a powerful position, I think we really need to shine a positive light on stuttering, because people's perceptions are only what they see in the media. So they see Adam Sandler in that role, or they hear Porky Pig, and that's all they know. But yet there's people like you, there's people like me, and then you have like celebrities like Ed Sheeran and Emily Blunt and all these athletes who also stutter, that have these positions of entertainment, and they're known for these positions. And it's like, that's what we need to focus on. We need to focus on being more positive, because now if you look in the media, like it's all about inclusivity, right? So there's like gender inclusivity now, and there's um like body image inclusivity. So I think it's important that we also bring that inclusivity towards not only stuttering, but a lot of other speech and language disorders, like people who have a lisp, or like people who've had a stroke, like with a lot of the aphasia difficulties that they have. So I think really, as a society, we could do a better job with being more positive. Like when the King's Speech came out, like I bawled my eyes out. I cried in that. I thought it was a fantastic movie that really highlights the struggles of someone who stutters. So I think something like that in the media would be really great.
And what advice or message would you like to give to people who stutter?
There's nothing wrong with them. It's just who we are. It's part of you. It's what makes you unique. It's what makes you special. It's what makes you you. And you will have challenging times, but know that there are people out there who have a stutter, who are just like you. And I think because the power of social media, like how we met, I think that it's great to have those platforms and really reach out and be like, hey guys, like I'm struggling today, and just have that little network and that community to be able to reach out to someone and let them know that they're not alone. I think that's very important.
I think so too, especially because we usually grew up thinking that we are the only ones.
Mhm.
I think nowadays with like social media, like young people can also connect to other people who also go through the same struggles and say hi. So I think it definitely helps. It definitely helps. So it's very important for other people to see cases like you and like so many others and just give up a positive message. Sharon, thank you so much for taking the time.
I just wanted to say that I think what you're doing is incredible for the stuttering community, and having that outlet like your website and the resources on there. I think it's a fantastic outlet for people to have, to just kind of happen to stumble upon and really read what's there, and know like the other testimonials that are on there that are like, oh, okay, this is enlightening and it's helpful. So I commend you for what you're doing for the stuttering community.
Thank you so much, Sharon.
You're
Thank you. Thank you
welcome.
for your contribution today. I'm sure that people will feel definitely very inspired by everything that you said. And and also through your personal like experiences, people will be able to also relate to you. So thank you so much and congratulations for becoming a speech pathologist. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this opportunity to kind of get my story out there and bring that positive awareness to stuttering. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.